As entrepreneurs, we're essentially mental athletes. You know, if you want to be good at business, then in the same way that an international athlete needs to treat their body in the right way in order to achieve that, as an entrepreneur, you need to treat your body in the right way in order to achieve that as well. Most people really struggle to get enough protein, and protein is super important for many, many reasons. And it's not just if you're building muscles, where clearly it is important, but also proteins are incredibly important for your brain and your brain functioning. So if you're not getting enough protein, then actually you're not going to think as clearly, you're not going to concentrate as well, and you're definitely not going to perform mentally as well as you would do if you're getting more protein.
Meat is about your nutrition, it's about protein first. Muscles is all about strength and having the ability to do the things that you want to do. And like I said, you know, we're mental athletes as entrepreneurs, and that's why our mindset's got to be good. You need money to make things happen, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And even people who, say, oh, I'm not driven by money. When you really drill into what they want, which might be kind of freedom, time, the ability to explore things, in one way or another, it always comes back to money, because it's money which gives you that freedom to do what you want.
Basically, just focusing on that one thing until it's successful, then move on to the next thing. Focus acronym, follow one course until successful. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Carnivore Entrepreneur Show. I'm here with Chris Poulter, and as you know, my name's Grant. I am the Carnivore Entrepreneur, and Chris is kindly given up his time today to talk to us about lots of different things to do with entrepreneurship and artificial intelligence. But I won't take his glory. I'll pass it over to Chris. Chris, you are our fourth guest on the Carnivore Entrepreneur, so within the first five. So I'll hand it over to you and let you introduce yourself to our audience.
Nice. Glad to see I'm an early adopter, as always.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my background, I started off in music, had a lot of fun, enjoyed the kind of creative side of stuff, but quickly realized there wasn't a lot of money there, and that I was going to struggle to get by in life if that was all I ever did. And interesting enough, I kind of started my first business, proper business, I guess, around the age of 25. And very quickly learned that it wasn't music that I was in love with, it was creativity. And much as people think that when you work in music, it's a very creative job, actually it's really heavily constrained, because you're working with an artist who wants a particular sound, they've written a song, and you have a little bit of creative input in there, but realistically, not a lot. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you can solve any problem for any customer in any way that you want, with any team, etc., etc. And I just found it was an amazing fit for me. And so, the last 15 years or so, I've been kind of, building businesses and kind of finding what works for me and what doesn't as an entrepreneur.
Excellent. Okay, cool. So thanks for the intro, Chris. I ask this question to everyone that comes on the show. So this is the Carnivore Entrepreneur Show. It's all about meat, muscles, mindset, and money. I want to know what qualifies you to be a carnivore entrepreneur.
I think a lot of these things are very important, and they come back to some of the other things that you talk about as well, body, mind, bank account. Because as entrepreneurs, we're essentially mental athletes. And I know that sounds a bit strange to some people when you kind of say it like that. But for me, I think the breakthrough moment in kind of realizing that was when I was looking to get a kind of visa for the US so that I could move my startup out there. And I was talking to a migration advisor and talking about the different visas that you can get. And basically what it came down to is okay, you need an I-1 visa. It's well, what's that? and they're like, well, it's a person of extraordinary ability, and it's the kind of thing they normally give to like international athletes. Yeah. So it kind of resonated with me, like, wow, like actually, if you want to be good at business, then in the same way that an international athlete needs to treat their body in the right way in order to achieve that, as an entrepreneur, you need to treat your body in the right way in order to achieve that as well.
Okay.
I'm sure we've both seen a lot of the struggle, if you like, as an entrepreneur is in that kind of mental mastery. If we could just write down what business we want, it would be very easy. If we could even just write down the steps that we needed to take, it would be very easy. But it's actually going out there and doing those things when things get tough, when we're tired, when things don't go our way, when we get thrown a curveball. That's the real that's the real factor behind success.
So it sounds like you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur, Chris, and and you've been doing it quite a while. What is your view on the meat and the muscles part of the carnivore entrepreneur?
Again, I think it feeds into health, really. So I mean, most people really struggle to get enough protein. And protein is super important for many, many reasons. And it's not just if you're building muscles, where clearly it is important. And yes, I've had my protein whey this morning already. So, I'm definitely a believer. But also proteins are incredibly important for your brain and your brain functioning. And I mean, I don't know a lot about biology and that side of science, I'll be honest. But like whenever I do look at proteins and how they work, it's a pretty incredible thing. And it's essentially one of the kind of building blocks which your body uses. So if you're not getting enough protein, then actually you're not going to think as clearly, you're not going to concentrate as well, and you're definitely not going to perform mentally as well as you would do if you're getting more protein. And hey, what more of a glorious and enjoyable way of getting protein is there than one of those amazing steaks which you cook up, Rob?
Excellent. Yeah, I mean the whole point is that meat is about your nutrition. It's about protein first. Muscles is all about strength and having the ability to do the things that you want to do. And like I said, we're mental athletes as entrepreneurs, and that's why our mindset's got to be good. And what's the point in having all of that if you haven't got any money, right? you need money to make things happen, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And even people who say, oh, I'm not driven by money, when you really drill into what they want, which might be kind of freedom, time, the ability to explore things in one way or another, it always comes back to money, because it's money which gives you that freedom to do what you want. And it doesn't make you greedy to acknowledge that and say that. It just makes you realistic, right? This is the world we live in. So
yeah, excellent. So on to some of the other questions then. So Chris, we first met back in 2018 when we joined the SA Quick Start, and we've been on a journey since then, and you've been with us ever since in terms of different capacities, different levels, and consider you a good friend now. So since then, since back in 2018 where we did the SA Quick Start and first met, what has changed in a big way with you since then over the last few years?
I think in a word, focus. And it's probably one of the most underused words as an entrepreneur, because we talked earlier about kind of creativity, and with creativity comes passion and excitement. But the negative side of that then is the kind of entrepreneur's curse, as I call it, which is always starting something and never finishing. Now, it's interesting we met around, 2018, because I remember that time pretty clearly because of some relatively ridiculous things which were going on at the time. Now, I had a bunch of different businesses, and one of my solutions, and I kind of, it's so embarrassing to look back at it now that I almost laugh at myself. But like my solution at one point was, well, I'll just have Monday for this business, Tuesday for this business, Wednesday for this business, Thursday for this business, and guess what I did on Friday? So I had 5 different businesses which I was doing, predominantly all with different people in and around short-term rentals, but nonetheless, my focus was all over the place. And when that's where you're at, then you're not giving any of those things the time and attention which they deserve. And this really culminated when COVID hit, because I went into COVID with my business partner Richie, thinking, "Hey, we're pretty diversified. We've got investments, we've got businesses, we've got consulting, we've got all these different kind of revenue streams, and actually we'll be absolutely fine." And what we quickly realized was that we were diversified in one way, but in another way, all these things were related to short-term rentals, which had just been made illegal overnight. So, having been through a lot of self-reflection over that period, what I realized was what I did was not actually that important when it comes to success. Yeah, because if I'd picked Monday's business or Thursday's business, it probably wouldn't have mattered. What would have mattered was giving all that time and attention which it needed to be successful.
Yeah, they call it inch wide, mile deep.
Hmm.
So basically just focusing on that one thing until it's successful, then move on to the next thing. The focus acronym, follow one course until successful. So yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
definitely something that I've learned over the years. I think, yeah, it's the entrepreneur's curse, isn't it, of trying to do too many things.
It is, and again, I'm very well. I'd like to say you can give me feedback. I'm very good at telling other people what to do. I'm not so good at doing it myself. So I probably would have been the first person to tell someone else, "Well, that's just stupid. You can't spread your focus. You're not going to be successful doing it that way." But it's so much harder to actually apply the kind of thoughts and ideas to yourself than it is to other people, which is one of the reasons why mentoring and coaching is like really valuable, because you get that external kind of opinion, validation, mirror, if you like.
Excellent. So you're my AI guy.
Hmm.
I come to you for everything with AI. You helped me out massively with the book that I've just published. And I think that it would have taken me a heck of a lot longer if I didn't have AI supporting me, using
Mhm.
AI as that sort of partner as opposed to a
Mm.
publishing company. And that was a game changer for me because it allowed me to get things off the ground really quickly, get answers when I wanted them, and also bring
Mm.
context to things that I might not have spotted. So that's been massively useful. What how, where do you think AI's place is with general entrepreneurs right now, and how do you see it developing in the future? Because this is definitely what you're passionate about.
Definitely, and it's a very broad question. So if I go too far off piece, then please bring me in.
Yeah.
um, in terms of where AI is right now, it really feels like most of the world hasn't caught up or acknowledged just some of the capabilities of what we could do. Um, because if you told me 10 years ago, as an entrepreneur, that I could type a few words into a box and it could come back to me with a 50-page report on something really important to my business, perfectly tailored, yeah, to with an understanding of what my business does, how it operates, and how these complex topics might relate to us, what we could do, then I'd have thought that was incredible. If you told me 10 years ago that I could upload a couple of CSVs into a chatbot and it would be able to do data science and it would be able to kind of extrapolate relationships and do all kinds of things which I had no idea how to do, let alone knowing that I could pay a human to do it really well, then I'd have been absolutely blown away. And the kind of list of these capabilities is pretty endless. As an entrepreneur, there's just so many more superpowers that we have now, and so much more leverage that we have compared to in the past, where A, you needed to understand that something was possible, B, you need to define and pay someone to go and do it for you. Yeah. So that for me is kind of where we are right now.
Yeah. And I think AI is not perfect, and I think if you don't know how to prompt the AI, it can be quite frustrating for people, and then they don't tend to use it because it's not good at reading between the lines yet. So that's what I've found. How do you think that's going to grow and develop over the future?
Well, what we've seen, particularly recently, where the model development has started to escalate very, very rapidly, is that that's something it's getting a lot better at. And there is a trend where we can start to think about the way that we work with AI in a slightly different way. So, I mean, I mentioned one example there, which was doing some data analysis with CSVs, for instance. Now, I started doing that about 2 years ago with ChatGPT when they first launched it. I was very excited. I used to do a lot of data analysis for sales and revenue and pricing, and still do. It's just a lot quicker these days. But I would put those CSVs into ChatGPT, and I'd need to give it nearly a 2-page prompt, in order to get it to do it right. I'd have to go like, first do this, then do that, then do that. Make sure you're careful of these things. Check that you've done this after that. And it would be a really long recipe of exactly what I wanted it to do. Yeah. Now, the change now is that I can basically just tell it, bake me a pizza, and it doesn't need the recipe. It will go and do it. Yeah. And the latest models are getting very, very good at that. We can stop thinking what steps do we need to take, and we can start thinking about what's the actual outcome, which I want.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So getting it to work on an outcome basis, as opposed to thinking that it understands you, because at the end of the day, it only understands what you tell it, right?
Yeah, and we're starting to see, for instance, with deep research from OpenAI, if you ask it to go and do something really long, it will generally come back to you with 3 or 4 questions. Yeah. So
to clarify.
Clarifying questions, they call them. So it's like, okay, what did you mean by this? Would you like this or would you like that? So we're starting to see a lot of the focus being on intent and comprehension. And that's kind of getting a lot better. Now, this will kind of, again, only accelerate as we move forward. What's really critical, which again, a lot of people have missed, is that with the latest models from OpenAI, we've gone from, we can just chat to something which can give us some text back or maybe generate an image or something like that, to actual full-blown agents, which rather than just being able to talk to us, they can go off and search the web. They can write some code if we've asked them to do a mathematical problem, or we've asked them to do some research which involves numbers where they might need to do some averaging or any of those kind of things. And it can come back to us, even a couple of minutes later with the results of what it's gone and done. Yeah. So the more agency these models are given and the more different tools, and I'm not just talking about things like searching the web, but the ability to have access to your Gmail or your docs, or your spreadsheets or your data or any of these kind of things. As that becomes normal, that these AI models have access to that, we can think more and more about that way of like, what's the actual outcome I want here, rather than the steps to go through it. And I think the great news for everyone who listens to this podcast is that we as entrepreneurs are perfectly positioned to do this, because we have to do this all the time with our teams. Yeah. When you start out, you might be able to do everything in your business, but as you grow, it's just not possible. And so inevitably, as you scale a business, you end up taking on a team, right? But what do you do when you're leveraging your business through a team, right? You're giving them guidance on what you want to get done. You're helping them understand the best way of doing it. And you're essentially checking their work regularly to make sure that, hey, what they're doing is in line with our expectations. And so actually, if you follow those same processes with AI, then you can be incredibly successful and generate an awful lot of value for your business.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, cool. So moving on to the pillar healthy body. First question, AI question. Is there anything you do with AI to improve your sort of your body, your nutrition, your exercise, your understanding of how you can be fit and healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably not a surprise to many people when we say that the foundation of AI is data. And when we think about AI and health, the big transformation in future is going to be how we use the data. Yeah. So right now we are very reactive when it comes to health problems. And it tends to be diagnoses are 3, 6, 12 months after the event, by the point that things start getting really bad. And it's actually, that much more expensive to treat. And the outcomes are much, much worse. Yeah. Now, what's likely to happen in future is that we'll all be tracking so much data about our bodies that we're going to be able to capture things potentially before they've even become a problem. Yeah. And this is exactly the kind of thing that AI is incredible about. It's ingesting huge amounts of health data and being able to understand, hang on, your blood sugar shouldn't be dropping like this after you've just eaten. That's a warning sign for XYZ. Yeah. So one of the things which I do now is try and track as much data as I can. And I don't go overboard because there's relatively easy and established tools which are out there. So, I mean, the first thing I do is I've got Whoop.
Yeah.
And this records all of my kind of body metrics in terms of calories expended every day. When I do a workout, I know roughly, because it's not exact, but I know roughly what my heart rate was. Overnight, I'm tracking my sleep, and it will tell me what my resting heart rate was, what my heart rate variability was. And one of the most important kind of health metrics which you can use to track our health is our CO2 max. And again, this is something where the Whoop's really good because while it's an approximation, it will give you a trend over time. And for instance, I will boast because I love the data, but I just yesterday I was looking through the data on my Whoop, and I found that my CO2 max had gone from 40 to 50 in a kind of 6-month period.
Nice.
Where I've been like working really hard on my kind of general fitness. So like that's the other amazing thing about data is it kind of gives you a feedback loop to know and understand what's working for you and what isn't. So the other thing the Whoop app does really well is you kind of give it a daily journal of, for instance, did I have caffeine today? You track your workouts, and it combines all these things to be able to tell you, well, on days you have caffeine, your recovery is 3% lower. Yeah. Or, of course, the bugbear of all of us, when you have alcohol, your recovery is 20% lower the next day. Really, really helped with that behavior as well. So between that and tracking food, like just general MyFitnessPal, what you end up with is a whole bank of data being kind of collected into your Apple Health, kind of all in one place. And one little trick I discovered earlier this week, actually, is that you can export that data from Apple Health and just chuck it straight into ChatGPT. And the latest models, O3, will be able to understand the format of the data, kind of drill into it for you, give you general trends. It will be able to give you, spot things like, okay, yeah, about once every 2 weeks you have a binge and go about 1,500 calories over, normally because of alcohol, right? It can do all of these kind of things. And again, we're just at the verge of starting to see just how valuable that data is going to be.
Yeah, so essentially, as long as you've got these smart devices on that are monitoring your data and putting it into an app, you can export the data, paste it into ChatGPT, and it can basically do you a full health assessment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we're not talking like small amounts of data either. I think it was like a 20 megabyte zip file, which came out of Apple Health. So that's actually, that's actually a huge amount of data. But again, the LLMs are getting very good at being able to look at all the stuff which is there and just pull in the bit that they need without being confused, which is something they're very bad at first.
Excellent. I do find using multiple LLMs, large learning models or language models. Is it learning or language models?
Language, yeah.
Language. So large language models. Using different ones is really beneficial as well, because you can do one thing in one and move it over to another one, and it makes it even better. It's almost like they're competing against each other. But sometimes one can know what to say to the other one to get a better result. So almost like you could get one to write a prompt for the other one, and then you adjust the prompt and make it better and take one bit of information. Like I did this with my book, where I would sort of do something in there and then paste it over to another learning model to analyze it.
Absolutely. And like it's interesting because different models have different characters and are good at some things and worse at others. So you have some which are really good at writing, you have some which are really good at coding, you have some which are kind of a good at mix. And it's interesting because in terms of prompt writing, for instance, I almost always use Claude. It just tends to write better, more concise, more clear prompts than the OpenAI models do. And the irony is, even if I'm writing for a prompt for an OpenAI model, I will use Claude in order to do that. Now, as you know, I do a lot of technical things as well and use models to write code. And when I do that there, it's all about planning it right. So saying, right, here's the approach that I want to take. Here's the technical things which I plan to do. And again, you start to really see that come through in a number of different ways. So first of all, I'll take it in one model and I'll like check it with another couple of models and go, hey, look at all the information I've given you. Look at this plan. Does it make sense? Can you see any issues with what we're doing here? Yeah. So usually if you take something across a few different models, it'll pick something else up, which you might not have done otherwise. But the other thing which is really interesting is that they have a bias towards themselves. Yeah. So if you pick Gemini content, then Gemini is more likely to say that was the best one. If you put in Claude content, then Claude is more likely to say that that's the best one. So they are also biased towards their own tone, their own outputs, probably in the same way that a human is.
Interesting. Cool. So thank you for that. Appreciate how we can all start to use AI a little bit better to actually learn more about ourselves, as long as we can collate the data. And I think that's really important. We can get too bogged down with the data. So I think rather than you analyze it, you can get the AI to do it, and it gives you the data that's important because it analyzes trends and patterns and things like that. So yeah, really, really good point. So a little bit off of AI, but what daily habits do you have at the moment that helps move your body in the right direction?
I think it's a very simple one, really. Exercise.
Okay. Daily?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting you use the word habit there, because I think habit is probably the most difficult word in the English language. because it's very easy to say and very hard to do. It's that whole kind of behavioral change is incredibly difficult, and it's something everyone on earth struggles with, I think. I spent many years kind of trying to fight the way that my brain works, if you like. So, I mean, for instance, if I had a weekend off, which doesn't happen that often, but I'd come in on a Monday morning and I'd just really struggle to kind of get going again and get into work. And I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with me? I need to try hard, or I need to be more motivated, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas eventually I realized, fine, if that's the way that I feel, then that's the way that I feel. What's the best way to work with it instead of fight against it? And I realized it's very simple. If I schedule all my weekly calls on a Monday morning, then at first I'll get up and go, oh, I've got to get on calls. By the time it's lunchtime, I've forgotten, I'm back in work mode and I'm good. Yeah. So for me, the moral of the story is like, don't try and fight like the way that your brain works. Just kind of find the hacks which work for you and make it work. So when I talked about exercise, it's very simple. I need to get up in the morning and I need to go straight to the gym, because if I don't do that, it doesn't happen. And I know it won't happen no matter how hard I try and convince myself that I will.
That's the atomic habits thing. You use one thing that you do to have a knock-on effect on the other thing that you do. So like, I'm the same. I actually have, one of my things is going to the gym in the morning, but after I've done a load of stuff. So I get up, I brush my teeth. So getting up, brushing my teeth, then I stretch. So each habit knocks onto the other one. And if I miss one, I potentially am going to miss the next one. So as long as I've hit each one, like get up at 4:30, brush my teeth immediately afterwards, stretch, drink water, go downstairs, take vitamins, then have ice bath, then read book, listen to something for 10 minutes or journal or whatever that might be. Right. And then it's gym after that. Your triggers are get up, get dressed, go gym. Right. But if you didn't get up at a certain time and then get dressed, you probably wouldn't go to the gym. Right. Because
totally.
It's a knock-on effect.
Yeah, and Atomic Habits is a fantastic book. I think habit stacking is really, really valuable, probably for two different reasons. So are you familiar with Dr. Stephen Peters, the chimp paradox?
Yes.
Yes. So he talks about kind of having three parts of your brain, right? The human, the chimp, and the computer. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I use this model for so much. It's probably not perfect, but it's a great way for you to think about yourself. So the reason that I think habit stacking works so well is because it works with both the computer and the chimp. Yeah. And those are probably the two most important things when the human's saying, here's what I want to do, but it's not working. It's either the human or the chimp getting in the way. So habit stacking works because it programs your computer to say, I do this, then I do this, then I do this. But it also programs the chimp to say, hey, when you do that thing that you don't enjoy, you get the thing that you do. Yeah. So, for example, when I was first building the habit of going to the gym in the morning, you kind of have that natural pushback of, can I really be bothered? But because I would always listen to interesting podcasts or watch YouTube videos, and I'd always work out the night before what I wanted to kind of consume at the gym the next day, when I got up in the morning, I would switch the carrot with the stick with the carrot, and I'd be like, okay, I need to get to the gym so that I can X, Y, Z. And again, that's kind of the power of the habit stacking.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to the gym. That's getting your body moving. How has your diet and nutrition evolved over the years? Where are you at with it at the moment?
That's a very interesting question. I should probably preface this by saying that when I went to school, I had two different meals for 5 years. I either had pizza and 2 portions of chips. I had I had 2 pizza and 1 portion of chips. They they didn't believe in nutrition when I went to school. And so, again, habits, right? So I started off with a very, very unhealthy diet. And because I'm luckily blessed with a very high metabolism, it didn't really make any impact until I started to kind of hit my 30s when it did. But
How did it
I think
impact you?
well, I'd always been like skinny to the point where like you could see all of my ribs when I breathed in, and like very, very skinny. And that certainly disappeared as I started to head into my 30s. But also it's more than just your body shape. You kind of start to get tired. You have less attention and focus, and like a lot of other things which can impact you really heavily when you're an entrepreneur and your kind of mind is your tool. And for me, I think it's quite simple. I've never had any real tricks or hacks other than just tracking. Yeah. And
Okay.
that's the only thing that I'll do is I'll just track it. So I never say, I won't eat this, or I will eat that, or I'm going to do this diet, I'm going to do that. I kind of treat it like meditation. It's like I'm going to observe without judgment. Yeah. And what that means is that I don't need to tell myself, oh, I shouldn't eat that, because the fact that I'm looking at it and I know and I track every day means that automatically I'll think, is it worth it or not? And sometimes it is. So the best way I've found of that is just by tracking and being aware of what I'm eating, because without having to set anything out in stone, like I will do this, I won't do that, then because I'm aware of the choices that I'm making, I generally make better choices. And actually, if I do decide to indulge in something like a pudding that I really like, then I'll probably actually enjoy it more, because I appreciate the fact that it is a treat and I can't do it every day. Whereas before I might have just had it and not even thought about it.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, it's a really, really good point. I think, we can all get a bit funny with treating ourselves, tracking every tiny little calorie. But I think, there's an element of tracking that has to go in with it. And if that's what works for you, that's absolutely great. I mean, for someone like me, I just need to control my portions, make sure I eat whole foods, and plan in a little treat every now and again so I don't go nuts. So yeah, that's sort of the important stuff. But okay, cool. Sounds like you're on a bit of a journey with your body and your health and fitness. So let's move on to the healthy mind, so the mindset. What do you do? Any practices that you do to avoid getting too overwhelmed or stressed out?
Well, I think that kind of self-awareness piece is just as important with the mind and it is with the body. So knowing and understanding where your stress levels are at is probably one of the most important things as an entrepreneur. And the reason for that is like we need to artificially drive stress in order to get stuff done. Right. Whether it's kind of internally to push us to put in the extra hours we need to do something, whether it's externally to drive other people to push in the same direction that we want, we need a certain amount of stress in order to make that happen. Because if there was no stress, then we'd just sit there in the morning doing nothing. Right. But at the same time, if you have too much stress, then it becomes very bad for your mind and your body and your health. So there was someone I listened to speaking once who I think had the kind of perfect analogy for this, which is the elastic band analogy. Because if you just leave it as it is, nothing's going to happen. If you stretch it just the right amount and let go, it's going to go flying. But if you pull it too far, it's going to snap. So it's having that awareness of exactly where your stress levels are right now. Are they in that optimal zone? Or actually you're pulling too far to let it loose a little bit so that you're not going to snap.
That's a really, really good analogy. And I think, it's a simple one, but is important to understand. Sometimes also when you pull an elastic band too far, it might not snap, but it also doesn't return back to the way that it was before, right?
Yeah,
Like you've almost
absolutely.
damaged it permanently.
Yeah, indeed, because I think there's too much focus on stress is bad, stress is bad, stress is bad. And I think we need to be realistic and say we need a certain level of stress in our lives
Mm.
to be high achieving, but we need to monitor that carefully.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the same is with physical, with your body. When you're at the gym or you're doing exercise, you have to put yourself under a certain amount of stress to get growth. But if you put yourself under too much stress, you get injuries and pain, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
isn't where you want to be. You don't want to go to the gym and every single time break your leg, or snap something. You want to go to the gym and do enough stress that makes your muscles grow, or makes your lungs better, or makes your heart better. But yeah, absolutely. And I think that analogy can be used across body, mind, and bank account. 100%. Love that. So do you have any daily practices, morning, evening, whatever, that keeps your head clear?
Well, I mean, the old cliche, I guess, but meditation, I think, is probably one of the most powerful things that there is. I naturally found meditation very difficult at first. It's the whole having the attention on
Busy
one
mind.
thing. Yes, exactly, exactly. But again, it's meditation is like building a muscle for the mind as well. It's building that ability to switch off and to kind of ignore the noise without judgment. So I kind of touched on that earlier a little bit. When I said that when I'm tracking categories, I'm observing without judgment. And that's really what meditation is about, because everyone, even the most fastidious Buddhist monk, when they meditate, they have all these little random things pop into their head. But that's not the point. It's not about stopping those things from happening. It's about stopping the way that you respond to them, right? So instead of sitting there getting stressed and going, oh, I can't even sit there and focus on my breathing for 5 minutes. What's wrong with me? And all this kind of stuff. Instead, it's just, being aware, not having judgment, and recentering your focus again. And while it sounds like an incredibly simple thing, it has such a profound impact on every other aspect of your life, because even though it's subconscious, you stop kind of judging things as much, which is a very painful thing to do. You start kind of accepting where they are, but then focus on, and what do I need to do to get them back to where it needs to be, which is a much more productive and practical way to deal with an issue than to actually deal with a sense of frustration and emotion, which comes with, well, it's not how it's meant to be, but it is what you're going to do about it.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So cool. So onto our third pillar. I know you preach very much build, test, scale, making sure that you systemize first, then grow. What would be your, advice that you would give any entrepreneur out there that wants to grow their business?
I think the thing which gets overlooked the most is it right for you? And I say that because I see a lot of people with great businesses who are really unhappy. And the reason that they're unhappy is because it was never the right business for them. So it always needs to start with what's right for you. And actually, if you find that magic sweet spot, then you are so much more likely to be successful than if you're not. And are you familiar with like a Gantt diagram where you have these kind of 3 circles and then it's the bit in the middle that you're aiming for?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, the perfect Gantt diagram for an entrepreneur is that it's something you're good at, it's something you enjoy, and it's something that people will pay you money for. Yeah. And if you can hit,
and then the sweet spot is in the middle.
Yeah. If you can hit something which ticks all of those boxes, then actually everything becomes so much easier. the biggest mistake probably that people make is by doing something that they're good at and people will pay the money for, but they don't enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're never going to be successful, even if you make lots of money, because success isn't defined by unhappiness.
Okay, I think that's a really, really good point, is to get that balance. Don't do something that you hate to be in every day. You want to have something that you enjoy, and that it makes you the money and it allows you to serve people at the same time. So another bank account question, and incorporating AI. Can you share any quick wins or stories where an AI workflow has saved you or a client real money?
I mean, lots. How long do you have? I mean, I'll give you a small and kind of simple example. So I have a software business, and it does lots of, lots of spending on software development. And one tax break in the UK is that you can get R&D tax credits, right? So I've worked with R&D accountants before. They usually charge about 25% of the claim in order to kind of look through what you're doing, work out how much you can claim, and present it to HMRC. So this was about 18 months ago as well. And so the technology was nowhere as good as what it was now. But I did a very simple process. And what I did was I went online. Now you could do this all in one font with those three. It'd be amazing. But what I did was I went online. I found like the top 5 kind of PDF type resources from accountants on R&D tax credits. I put them all into ChatGPT. Yeah, I used that to create like a GPT, so it knew and understood all the knowledge and could answer my questions. And then I gave it my information. I said, hey, look, here's what I've done. Here's the amount of money that I've spent on these various categories. Can you help me turn this into an R&D tax claim? And in total, it took about half an hour and saved about £2,500 off my tax bill that year.
Wow. Blimey. So, I mean, look, like, these are, I would say, some amazing stuff that people can do to ensure that they not only are using the right tools to create a wonderful business for themselves, but they're also creating something that they're going to enjoy at the same time. I think that's something that I can pick up from you, is that you've probably done some stuff in the past that you didn't enjoy as much, and now you're sort of really leaning into the stuff that you do enjoy. In terms of wrapping this up, can you give me some quick fire stuff? So what would be your 3 top tips on AI for entrepreneurs?
So I think a lot of it is around mindset and how you think about AI. So I used to use it in 2 ways, and now I use it in 3 ways. And that will probably really help from a business owner perspective, right? So first of all, I use it as an advisor. Yeah. So if there's something that I don't have a lot of knowledge about, or I want to sharpen my knowledge, or I want really specific knowledge, then I will use it for that. So let's say tax implications, like I just talked about before. It could be company law, or anything to do with health and safety, or legal frameworks, or any of those kind of things. AI is a fantastic way of getting more information, as long as you make sure that it is grounded in truth. And most of the models nowadays will give you a reference so that you can double check if it's super important. All right, thanks so much for that. The second way that I use it is more like an assistant. So if you think about a junior member of staff, someone who's keen, eager, and enthusiastic, but you need to check their work because they make some mistakes sometimes, then that's also a great way to think about it. And for a business owner, that might be asking it to summarize some stuff, or write up some documents based on other documents. So the mindset really here is that we're asking someone else to do the task, but we're going to check it very carefully afterwards, just to make sure that it's correct. Now, the third way, which I've started using AI more recently, and it's only possible because it's got so much better, is more like a business partner, if you like, or a coach or a kind of sanity checker. So when I'm doing stuff which I already know that I'm very good at and very capable at, it's still useful to be kind of bouncing off someone else. Yeah, and a lot of us do this a lot of the time anyway with kind of peers or business partners or coaches. But AI can do that really well as well, where you're just kind of going, right, here's what I'm doing, here's the process which I'm planning to do. Just sanity check me here. Am I missing anything? Is there a better way of doing this? Is there something that I haven't really thought of while I'm doing this? Yeah. And that can be incredibly powerful because unlike the other two, where you either know that you need some information or you want to get something done, this can really help check your blind spots because, we were talking before about routines, we get into ways of doing things. And just by putting the normal everyday things that we do, we can actually then challenge ourselves to say, well, why don't you do it that way? It'll probably take you 10 minutes less each day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, some really good tips there. And I think if we can, just level up the way that we utilize artificial intelligence within our daily lives, it will grow with it as opposed to being taken over by it. And I think that's, don't be scared of it, I think is one of my biggest top tips. But I think there's some really good ones for people to get started. So quick fire one. What's your favorite book?
Let's go with Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman.
Oh, okay, cool. New one. Haven't had that one before. It's good. Okay. And what's your biggest goal over the next 12 months?
Well, I'm currently building some open source software, which is, I'm hoping, going to be kind of a foundational layer of businesses moving forward. So my objective really for 12 months' time would be to build quite a significant user base on that platform. In the meantime, there's lots of other steps, including fundraising and building teams and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it's in pursuit of the goal, which is to kind of create the operating system which businesses need in order to start using AI on the day-to-day stuff of their business.
Excellent. Okay. And last but not least, how would you like people to contact you?
Well, I definitely don't go on Twitter these days. I don't know if you've been there. It's not a very fun place. So LinkedIn generally seems to be having a resurgence. It's a lot more popular nowadays. There's a lot more interesting discussions and debates going on. So just find my LinkedIn profile.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Well, your information will be in the show notes, but I'm sure if they just type in your name in LinkedIn, they'll find you, look for your face. Nice and easy. So any final thoughts, Chris, or comments?
Yeah, again, I think in terms of where the world is going and the way things are going to change, it can be really hard and confusing to know what that's going to mean, or even start thinking about what we're going to be doing in 5 to 10 years' time. The thing which has kept me sane through all of this is really thinking about capabilities above products and services. So for me, it's very simple. 3 capabilities which I focus on every day. The first is learning, so just understanding what's going on, the latest things which are coming out, how they're relative to you. The second is building, which is more about being able to use these things in day to day. We're not talking about going out and building software systems here. It's like, can you find a new way of speeding up your process using ChatGPT or by using image processing or doing these kind of things? And the third capability is selling, because as an entrepreneur, we're always selling. You're always going to need clients, regardless of what your products or services are. And if you can sell something deeper than just transactional and start to build relationships with a group of people, generally community, then that's going to stand you really well in long stead as we kind of come into the age of AI.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Love those final thoughts. I think there's some really good stuff there to take away. I think if we were to improve those three things as entrepreneurs, then we'd definitely be better and probably enjoy it a lot more as well. Because the more you understand something, the better you can sell something, the more enjoyable it is, because you find it easy. Usually we enjoy stuff that we find, easier and that we're good at as well. So thank you very much, Chris. This has been an amazing interview. I think we've managed to zone in the waffling, because we both have a tendency to waffle on, but it was me questioning you, so hopefully we've kept it as streamlined as we possibly can. Some really good stuff on AI there, and hopefully our listeners will get something from it, and if they need anything, to get in contact with you. So thank you very much, Chris, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you, Grant.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You are a carnivore entrepreneur. Live life how it was supposed to be lived, on your terms, with strength, energy, and purpose. I'll see you on the next episode.